Hello, it's Anne-Marie from Charmed Life Therapy again, back with another little chat about Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. I've just come in here to the office where I'm currently staying and I've forgotten all about little Moe, so you might want to have a little look at Moe. She's exceptionally cute. So she's one of the dogs that I'm down here helping with for the time being. I got right surprised when I opened the office door because she's so quiet you forget she's in here sometimes. So I was quiet yesterday because I try and like to do these things every other day, really. And yesterday I could have jumped on because there was lots of things going on. But I think sometimes with this case, especially when things either there's nothing or there's everything, I think it's quite beneficial to just sit back and see what happens sometimes and not just immediately react or immediately get disheartened, because it was very easy to do that. I mean, the last time I made a video, we were waiting to find out why the deadline had passed for Justin's, second or third amended complaint, the last part of his legal case that was remaining to him. And of course that passed, and there was a tiny little a response from Brian Friedman, but it was a bit vague as to was it that entirely his statement or was it something cobbled from different sources. It was just a bit bland, wasn't it, basically saying not to worry and they may be pursuing other legal avenues and that the truth is pretty much still what the truth is and they're still going to tackle it in that manner. And I have said before in other videos that when the judge first dismissed a large part of Justin's case, my feeling was then at that point, you know, it might not be such a bad thing because it might be that it works better if he just is entirely on the defence, that his story, his narrative works better as a defence than as something proactive. So I can't say as I'm entirely surprised that he's not going forward with the remaining claims, because they're not the things that were the most important. And I think possibly there's a good chance that when he was asked to weigh it up, you've kind of to think, what is the message? You know, the way things are going and how easy it seems to be for Blake to get what she wants, and he seems to have to quadruple explain anything that he wants, and it's not so easy. I guess there's a thing in the back of his mind, Justin's mind, the team's mind, whoever's mind, conversations he's having with his wife is, if all of this, if you don't get the outcome that you want, if you can't get like an apology, if you can't get that accusation quashed, what's the message that you want to come out of it? And I guess he was thinking, well, is the message that I want to get out of it that I got a little bit of money back when it comes to contracts or something like that? And I think he's possibly thought, no, even if it all goes wrong, even if I don't get anywhere with this, the public is what matters here. And I think I want the public to remember the truth. And I think that's the job we're all doing here on YouTube, mainly. All of us that are doing it. People like Without a Crystal Ball, Popcorn Planet, Dave Neal to some extent, Dana Bowling, Zach, Peter, not actually Golden to some extent. Some of these people are still a bit like not quite Team Baldoni. I think they're more Team the Truth, which is fine. We should all be Team the Truth. But I think those of us emotionally led people are more just Team Baldoni. We just see that injustice and see that unfairness, don't we? And it kind of tugs at our heartstrings, because all of us have been in situations like that where we felt like we were in a no-win situation, where the people that we were fighting had all the power and all the influence and all the rest of it. On some scale, we've all dealt with something like that. So yeah, I think possibly there's been a little conversation about, if we truly can't get past this stranglehold that Blake and Ryan seem to have when it comes to legal machinations, what is the message that you want to come out of it all? And it may be that even if he doesn't win any aspect of it, he'd rather be remembered for losing the right things. Possibly. Maybe that's something to do with it. And just some kind of thoughts along the lines of Blake and Ryan, because, you know, a lot of us out there, we often kind of, if you're religious at all or spiritual at all, it kind of tends to make you question it, doesn't it? Things like this. Well, why has God allowed this to happen? Justin seems to be a good person. Blah de blah. Why do bad people get away with all of this kind of thing? But you've got to remember that God did create us all, if you want to believe in that. I do, personally. And the thing is, he did give us free choice. He did give us free will. And my personal belief is that you come down here to learn lessons, and you come here to break those karmic cycles, don't you? And you come here, and I hope I'm doing that in this lifetime. I certainly feel like I'm doing. I've still got a ways to go. But I do feel like people like Blake and Ryan, they're still stuck in those same old cycles, aren't they? They've not learned anything yet, I would say, is my feeling about it all. So kind of don't get lost in the anger at them. Just remember they're dealing with their own crap, and would you really, even for all of the money, all of the power, all of the influence, would you really want to be Blake Lively or Ryan Reynolds? Really, would you like to be in their camp? You know, Marissa Peer, who I talk about quite often, but she created RTT, which is what I do in my day-to-day business life. And you know, when you work through the RTT process, and for most people it's like having had mothers and fathers that didn't nurture when you were young, particularly between those ages of 0 and 7 that were really crucial. And one of the things she will often take people back to during the process of reframing the past, she will often kind of do this love bombing thing. So like, say your mum or dad was still alive right now, and they were getting up with you every morning, making you a cooked breakfast every morning, baking you cookies, walking you to school, walking you to work. They wanted to spend every minute with you. They wanted to do all of the things for you. They wanted to kiss you goodnight. They wanted to make you hot chocolate and marshmallows. They wanted to do this. Would you want it now as an adult? And everybody says no, of course. And it's like for old Blake and Ryan have all of these things that so many people envy. When you look at what they have to do and be as a result of that, would you really want that? No, you wouldn't, I think, for most people. You'd rather have the things that matter, the things that Justin already has, like a loving wife, like good friends, he's, by just being himself, he's won over people like Brian Friedman that have seen the worst of society. You know what I mean? How many times have you seen a lawyer be quite so passionate about person, willing to go to that length just by being himself? And prior to Blake Lively, if you remember, everybody on that film set, it ends with us with saying how wonderful he was and what a wonderful experience it had been working with him. And, that's just by being him. You don't get that same thing from Blake and Ryan because it's not happening. They're not living a real and connected life. So that's how I can have tiny bit of compassion for them, because I'm thinking, wow, you're going to be repeating this cycle over and over and over again until you learn this, So what's going on in the cases? There's all sorts, isn't there? So Leslie Sloan believes she's fully vindicated now, and is after her expenses because she's saying basically that it was a frivolous and malicious, well, I don't know if she's saying malicious, but she's saying it was a nonsense lawsuit that was brought, so she should get to have her expenses. So we have to wait and hear about all of that. But meanwhile, we've got this whole James Fatuska thing, the Daily Mail reporter, that kind of tied Leslie Sloan into it all because of his texts between him and Leslie Sloan that were referencing Melissa Nathan from Tag Justin's Crisis PR person. And this affidavit that James wrote saying that he never said that Leslie Sloan told him Blake was SA'd or SH'd, that didn't happen. But now it seems, according to people like Without a Crystal Ball, that affidavit may well have been coerced, and that because, like, his lawyer was his work appointed lawyer, so connected to Daily Mail. They weren't impartial on his behalf at all. They were working on behalf of the company because the Daily Mail didn't want to be exposed in all of this as like leaking sources or whatever it was. So there's a question mark over actually was he coerced, and what actually backs that up is the fact of him having changed attorneys now, and he's gone from his Daily Mail connected attorneys to Mark Garagos's firm. Mark Garagos has done some really huge cases, hasn't he? I think he wasn't they OJ related, OJ Simpson, but many others, Menendez brothers and all kinds of things. I know, like, often when I'm watching those reality TV movie things, real life slash there's several times it's been Mark Garagos involved in it. So that in itself is interesting and percolating away in the background, which is why I kind of bang on and reiterate about not getting too disheartened yet about the injustice of it all. And of course, the big thing that's going on now is we're finally talking about the VanSham lawsuit out with the VanZan subpoena and all the rest of it. And that is coming up through the Abel versus Jones part of it all. So we're finally getting to the crux of it, is why are we not seeing the subpoena itself? We kind of know what the lawsuit said, but we've not actually seen that subpoena. So Ellen Garofalo has created a motion to compel VanZan to produce this subpoena. It's not been forthcoming from Stephanie Jones. She claims that she doesn't have it or whatever, which is kind of questionable. We know that I can never know what to say now, VanZan or VanSham, subpoena was served well after they actually got documentation or evidence from Jen Abel's phone. There was like almost a month, wasn't there, something like that, before the subpoena was created, because we know that Leslie Sloan was gloating to Melissa Nathan practically the moment that Jen Abel was frog marched and had a possessions taken off her at Jones Works. We know that not much after that, was it the next day, that Leslie Sloan was gloating to Melissa Nathan that you're going to get sued because we got the text, blah, blah, blah. So we know the subpoena was created long after that, possibly at the time they were first kind of looking at the legal side of it and what they'd need and the rest of it, or how they were going to proceed. But yeah, so we're trying to find out now why VanZan will not provide the original copy, because apparently they have copies of everything, but they've not seen the real subpoena, the original. And they seem to be really focused on getting that. So there has to be something to do with that original that is important in this case. Maybe it's to do with metadata or something that's been mooted. So maybe it needs to be really specific. But you know yourself, I mean, it's different in different countries. But if you're doing something really specific, to do with legal processes or government organisations like passport control or maybe driver's licence, or you're notifying a company about somebody's death, they don't want to see a copy of a document, do they? They want to see the original. So this is kind of like that. Is it possibly to do with a stamp on it or something like that? So there's, you know what I mean, because a copy can be manipulated. A copy doesn't tend to stand up in a court of law, does it? And if there's no problem with anything, why are they withholding it? Why do they not want to give it over? Why do they not want to let on who the shareholders are of VanZan? Because right now we kind of only really know that Blake, I'm not sure, do we specifically know Ryan's connected? Possibly. But it might be interesting to know who other shareholders are, because this company is quite mysterious, isn't it? Because all we know else that it's done is buy a bit of furniture that may or may not have ended up in that Taylor Swift video that Blake directed. And all of that was quite weird, really, wasn't it? Why would it come via that? It's such a weird thing, unless Blake originally created that as her kind of directing company or production company or something, and then it never took hold or whatever it was. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot riding on the VanZan of it all. Because I think if the judge doesn't grant this one, and given like he's given over plenty to Blake, hasn't he? It's like the tag employees, they've been compelled now, they've got that passed. So you can't just compel all the other side to do things, can you? And not kind of, as Without a Crystal Ball pointed out, some of the things that were raised in that motion to compel Brianna, is it Catherine Case and Brianna Coslow, that some of the arguments raised there could equally apply to why these people should submit to being compelled to produce that subpoena. So if the judge doesn't compel this, and I think it's pretty crucial and critical and evident how important that is, and shouldn't the judge want to know that the law was used in this way? I mean, the major argument here is that VanSham thing was about a breach of contract, but it kind of in the terms of it, it doesn't even clarify who the contract was between. So how can you supposedly know whose information you need, because you're claiming to know that you don't know what the contract is? So how do you know who to give that subpoena to? It can't be that random. I totally get that at times these door subpoenas are necessary, because sometimes you won't know the parties. You'll know kind of a lot of the information, but you won't know the source of whatever it is, a leak or whatever. But here we are, where we clearly know who wanted what from and what contract it was connected to. We know it, don't we? So how can you validly use a door subpoena? That has to be underhanded, doesn't it? And surely the judge at this point has to give us a little bit of grace and say, yeah, this isn't brilliant, we need, or it appears not brilliant on the surface, so we need to know more, we need to compel that original. I'm hoping that's what it is. I really do, because I think if that gets knocked on the head, I think all of us will be, I don't know what all of us will think, because it literally is, at what point do you just throw your hands up in the air and say this is completely unfair and completely biased, and wrapping somebody completely in knots and taking away his constitutional right to defend himself or be heard fairly. I mean, the way the judge dismissed most of Justin's case quite brutally. I mean, yes, you could argue that first amended complaint, it was all over the place. You might call it messy. It was a compelling story. I think that's why we all got involved with it. But it's like, how could somebody read that and not pick up that malice could well be a part of all of that? That even if you didn't want to go down all of the avenues, if the judge wanted to rule out a lot of things, how could you not see? He wants to call it hard bargaining, didn't he, the judge? But I mean, when does hard bargaining become malice? When does it become extortion and threatening not to come back to work so somebody can finish filming $1 million movie, $1 million investment? I mean, if that film had have gone down or had to start over, that could have ruined Wayfarer. It certainly would have set them back years. How is that hard bargaining? How is that not malicious? And it will be interesting as the defence progresses. And I remember one of the things I mentioned the other day is that Blake has to prove all of these incidences where she supposedly had COVID and couldn't work and things like that, that Justin wants evidence of that. That's what he's asked, part of what he's asked for in discovery. And that I ran through that in one of my other videos, all the people that are going to be, that Justin's side want all the communications with. So please try not to get bogged down while we wait, because there is still a lot in play, and that defensive argument is going to still be a very powerful argument. And I get the sense now at this point, if not all along, that basically Justin wants the truth, just wants the truth to come out. I don't think it is genuinely all about money for him. I don't think that, even when the 400 million was mooted and all of the rest of it, I don't think it was really all about that. And kind of what I can see coming out of it, I can see, like, you know, when we get down the line, when we get the other side of this thing, I think they are going to make It Starts With Us. I think they will gleefully make It Starts With Us with an entirely new cast, possibly, or maybe he will approach Isabella Ferrer and the young Atlas. Maybe he'll make a point of doing that and working with them and producing the sequel, but I think it will happen. I think they'll make a point of doing that, because I certainly bloody well would. I would gleefully make that movie and cut Blake out of it. I gleefully would. And I wouldn't allow Colleen Hoover on set either. And I wouldn't invite Brendan Sklenar to the premiere either. But yeah, you tell me your thoughts below and how you're feeling, and I will get back to you. Please do hit that like and subscribe and share if you're enjoying my content, and have a lovely day.